The silence of the abandoned barracks swallowed me whole. The floor creaked under my weary steps, and each broken door seemed to whisper my name, as if the echoes of old orders had remained etched into the walls. A cold wind swept through the corridors, carrying the metallic smell of rust and dust, reminding me of the smell of the old weapons I carried in the trenches. Suddenly, something moved in the dim light. A quick, almost imperceptible figure crossed the room to my right, and my heart raced. There was no one there. Only the echo of my own breath mixed with sounds that seemed like whispers of familiar voices. Voices of comrades who were no longer with me. My hand instinctively reached for the imaginary weapon I no longer carried, but the feeling of alert remained. Each step seemed to echo as if the entire structure were alive, watching, testing my presence. An old notice board lying on the floor slammed against the wall, making me jump in fright. There, at that moment, the past and the present mingled. Ghosts of shouted orders, lost battles, and faces I will never forget danced before my eyes. As I crossed the overgrown courtyard, I noticed ancient inscriptions on the peeling walls, scratched names, dates, and symbols that seemed to mark small victories or forgotten tragedies. A loud crack coming from one of the watchtowers made my body tremble. It was impossible not to feel that this place still held memories, a kind of living memory of those who had passed through here. I felt a pressure in my chest, not only from the fear of the unknown, but from carrying every war memory that had haunted me for decades. And then I heard a laugh, low, hoarse, almost human, but impossible to identify. My eyes scanned the darkness, trying to locate the source. But there was no one. Only shadows, shadows that seemed to know my most intimate secrets. My body trembled, not from cold, but from recognition. That place had witnessed my own youth, my mistakes, my acts of courage, and the death of men I considered brothers. A lightning bolt briefly illuminated the cloudy sky and reflected off the broken windows, revealing, for an instant, figures lined up as if they were marching. Were they just shadows of destroyed furniture? Perhaps. But my heart, hardened by war, recognized the cadence of steps that would never fade from my memory. The feeling that something was watching me, something that knew every battle I had faced, made the air almost suffocating. I approached one of the main rooms, the floor covered in shards of glass and papers yellowed by time, and found a fallen helmet. A simple object, but one that triggered an avalanche of memories. Explosions, shouted orders, wounded comrades crying for help. I gripped the helmet tightly, feeling the weight of the past mixed with the present. And in that instant, I realized that the barracks wasn't just abandoned, it was a sanctuary of memories, of shouted orders, and of lives marked by the sound of gunfire and the silence of death. Something touched my shoulder. I turned quickly, but there was no one there, only the echo of my own breath and the creaking of the old ceiling. But instinct told me, I'm not alone. There, between fallen walls and ghosts of yesteryear, I felt the war approaching again, not in the distant fields, but within me, ready to challenge me at every step. And it was in that instant, while the wind howled and the ghosts seemed to whisper, that I realized something terrifying. The abandoned barracks wasn't just recalling my past, it was testing me. A feeling that my body, my mind, and my courage would be judged once more arose. And there, alone, surrounded by echoes of orders and familiar shadows, I realized that this journey wouldn't just be about reliving memories, but about facing truths I had long tried to avoid. My name is Jack Reynolds, a veteran of multiple battles that left visible and invisible scars. Before all this, I was just a young man from the countryside, passionate about motorcycles, military history books, and long walks at sunset. Life seemed simple, predictable, until I decided to enlist. I believed in what they promised us: honor, courage, protection of the homeland. But the reality of war is a shadow far heavier than any training could prepare you for. My first landing on hostile soil was like an electric shock that ran down my spine. The smell of gunpowder, blood, and wet earth mingled, creating an atmosphere that remained etched in my memory like an indelible mark. I saw my brothers in arms fall beside me, heard screams that should never have existed, and felt the weight of decisions that shouldn't have depended on me. Each mission seemed to demand more than I had, requiring sacrifices I didn't even understand at the time. The nights were worse than the days. I would wake up in a cold sweat, hearing imaginary gunshots, feeling the weight of the weapons, and the smell of fear ingrained in my skin. The memories came in waves, unexpected, as if they were chasing me. One day, a close friend, Sergeant Michaels, was shot in front of me. I tried to save him, but I was too late. I held his hand as he passed and felt a sense of helplessness that I would carry for the rest of my life. The war taught me that courage is only part of what you need to survive. The other part is accepting that not everything depends on you. When I returned home, I thought I could find peace. But war doesn't say goodbye easily. The city streets seemed too small and people didn't understand my silences or the unexpected tremors that overcame me. The sound of a car speeding down the street, the crack of a piece of wood in the yard, anything could transport me back to the devastated fields, and the orders shouted amidst the chaos. My own mind became a battlefield. That's why I returned to the abandoned barracks, not out of nostalgia but out of necessity. It was a capsule of everything I'd lived through, a physical extension of the war that hadn't yet left my soul. There, between fallen walls and empty rooms, I can face my ghosts head-on, remember who I was, what I lost, and confront the pain I carry in silence. It's strange to feel that such a destroyed place can be a sanctuary. But it knows me better than anyone ever will. My hands, now wrinkled and full of scars, still remember the weight of the weapons and equipment. My body aches in ways only veterans understand, each joint reminding me of a fall, each muscle remembering extreme exertion. But it's my mind that suffers the most. Every shadow, every unexpected sound, every broken handrail reminds me of moments when life and death brutally intersected. Deep down, I'm not just looking for memories. I'm looking for answers. Answers to the whys that the war imposed on me. Why do some survive while others perish? Why is courage not always enough? Why does the world remain indifferent to the pain we carry? Each step through the abandoned barracks is an attempt to reconcile the man I was with, the man I have become. And even if I try to push these memories away, they insist on accompanying me. The distant sound of boots on the wooden floor, the creaking of a door opening by itself, the echo of voices that no longer exist. All of this reminds me that the war did not end when I left the battlefield. It continues here, inside me, and in this silent barracks, I can finally face it. As I walked down the main corridor of the barracks, I felt a strange presence. It wasn't just the wind or the creaking of the old floorboards. It was something more, something that tested my limits. Each step seemed to amplify the echo of ancient voices, as if the building itself were assessing my courage, my right to be there. It wasn't long before the first challenge presented itself. At the back of a large room, I found a group of young urban explorers, daring teenagers who seemed to be seeking adrenaline in forgotten places. They laughed loudly, their cell phones capturing every shadow and every creak, turning fear into entertainment. When they saw me, they stopped abruptly, exchanging confused glances. One of them, probably the leader, stepped forward, a mocking smile plastered on his face. "Hey, old man, this place isn't for us who are already retired," he said, mocking my age and my simple uniform, which barely held the memories of my military life. I felt a mixture of anger and resignation. It wasn't the first time the world had underestimated me for being a veteran. But the situation was different. It wasn't just disrespect, it was trespassing. They weren't aware of what that place represented, of the historical weight it carried in every cracked wall, in every empty room. And yet, they laughed. "You have no idea what you're stepping on," I replied, trying to stay calm. My words sounded firm, but my heart was racing. Every muscle in my body remembered years of training, endless days on battlefields. But nothing prepared you for the silent hostility of contempt. One of the boys laughed, ignoring my warning, and advanced toward one of the observation towers with a glint of defiance in his eyes. That's when I realized this wasn't just a test of patience. It was a real risk. The structure was unstable, full of rust and rotten wood. One wrong step could mean serious injury, maybe even worse. My experience screamed to intervene, but I needed to calculate the right moment. As they approached the tower, I felt the weight of my history pressing down on my shoulders. Every soldier I lost, every failed mission, every sleepless night, it all converged on that moment. It was as if the barracks, with its shadows and echoes, had chosen to test me again. And I knew I couldn't fail. "Go back now," I shouted, my voice echoing through the empty corridors, carrying an authority they didn't expect. But they just looked at me with disdain, as if my words were wind. One of them, bolder, mocked, "And what are you going to do, Grandpa? Throw a medal at us?" The provocation, so simple and cruel, rekindled within me the memory of past humiliations. It wasn't just about respect, it was about justice. About showing that experience, sacrifice, and courage have value, even when ignored by the world. Every fiber of my body was tense, every memory of the war clamoring for action, even in a setting that seemed merely urban and harmless. At that moment I heard a loud crack, the sound of wood giving way. One of the boys had lost his balance, almost falling into the void of the unstable tower. Without thinking, I ran and caught him, feeling his weight in my arms and the immediate danger of the structure. The rest of the group recoiled, surprised by my action. The experience and reflexes acquired over years of combat had given me an advantage. But it wasn't just about saving a reckless boy. It was a demonstration that the veteran still had presence, could still act with precision and courage. Despite the danger, I felt a strange connection at that moment. Past and present converging. My body still responded, my mind still calculated, and my soul remembered that, even when underestimated, there was still room for justice, for respect, and for courage. But the situation wasn't over. They were still there, watching, without fully understanding what they were facing. And I knew. The conflict was only beginning. After saving the boy who almost fell from the tower, I expected some recognition, even if minimal. But what I received was the opposite. Laughter, whispers, and mocking glances from a group that had no idea of the weight I carried on my shoulders. The feeling was suffocating. For a moment, the silent barracks seemed to conspire against me, echoing each laugh as if amplifying their contempt. "Wow, look at that. He's still moving," mocked the group leader, approaching with his cell phone in hand, ready to film my every move. "He's just a tired old man trying to act important," added another, laughing cruelly. My hands trembled, not from fear but from contained anger. I tried to ignore them, taking a deep breath and remembering the years of discipline and self-control that military life imposed on me. But the humiliation was almost physical. Each word was an invisible blade, cutting memories that I struggled to keep under control. "Do you really think you can come here and laugh at everything?" I said, trying to impose an authority they clearly didn't respect. "This place has history and you have no idea what you're stepping on." They just laughed even louder. One of them stepped forward, pretending to look inside my uniform, as if searching for proof that I was nothing more than a harmless old man. "What an old uniform! I bet you don't even know how to shoot properly anymore," he taunted, giving a cynical laugh. Those words, so simple, carried centuries of collective disrespect that veterans like me know all too well. I remembered all the times society ignored our pain, our memories, and our struggles. For a moment I felt invisible, reduced to a stereotype. The useless old soldier, just a relic of a glorious past that no one wanted to remember. But within that humiliation, something ignited. A vivid memory of a night in the desert, under enemy fire, with Sergeant Michaels by my side, shouting orders as we tried to save civilians. Their courage, their sacrifice, could not be in vain. I could not allow a group of ignorant teenagers to diminish everything I had lived through. I took a deep breath and approached the leader. He recoiled, surprised by my determination. My gaze was not just one of anger, it was that of someone who had faced chaos, death, and loss, and still stood. "Do you think this is funny?" I said, my voice firm, echoing through the empty corridor. "Every step you take here is treading on sacrifices you will never understand. Every laugh of yours is an insult to those who gave everything so that you could live free." They exchanged uncertain glances. For the first time, I noticed hesitation. But it wasn't enough. The humiliation still hung over me, reminding me of how the world often judges only by appearances, without knowing history or courage. As they retreated, it wasn't just fear I saw in their eyes. It was surprise, timid recognition, but still insufficient. Public contempt had reached its peak, and my patience was at its limit. Every fiber of my body remembered the battles. Every physical and emotional scar screamed for justice. And I knew that the next action needed to be decisive. Not just for my own honor, but to remind those who laughed that courage and sacrifice don't disappear with age. Deep down, I also felt a strange connection to the barracks. Every cracked wall, every shadow in the corridor seemed to reinforce my resolve. This place hadn't abandoned me. It still held echoes of order and discipline, reminding me of who I was and what I was capable of. And the public humiliation, instead of breaking me, ignited an inner strength that I thought I had left behind in the war. While the teenagers continued to laugh and film, I felt that something needed to be done. Something that would not only silence them, but show them the truth they couldn't ignore. And then it happened. A loud crack coming from the ceiling of one of the adjacent rooms made everyone freeze. A wooden beam, worn by time and moisture, began to give way, threatening to collapse on the group that still remained careless. Time seemed to slow down. Each second stretched out, and veteran instinct kicked in. I ran without thinking, positioning myself to cushion the fall of one of the boys closest to me. The impact was brutal. I felt his weight in my arms, my heart racing, muscles burning. But no fear, just absolute focus. "Hold on tight," I shouted, feeling the adrenaline course through my veins, while the others watched, paralyzed. The ground trembled with the impact of the falling beam, scattering dust and debris everywhere. When the boy was finally safe, silence settled in. The laughter ceased. The entire group stared at me, and for the first time, there was something different in their eyes. Respect. It wasn't just the momentary fear of danger they felt, but the recognition that, even with my advanced age and worn appearance, I still possessed reflexes and courage that most of them would never experience. I took a deep breath, trying to catch my breath as the dust slowly settled. The group leader, still with his cell phone in hand, finally spoke. But his voice was different, hesitant. "I didn't know." "You?" he began, stumbling over his words, unable to find the right phrase. I just looked at him, serious, remembering that not everything could be said in words. My scars, my worn uniform, my firm posture, everything there told the story they had never heard. The barracks, with its shadows and echoes, seemed to bear witness to my silent authority. And then, something even more unexpected happened. An old notice board fell, revealing a series of old photos of soldiers from my battalion. I recognized every face, every mission, every scar. The teenagers recoiled, surprised by the scene, and I felt that, at that moment, it wasn't just a matter of physical courage. It was tangible proof that every story told there had weight, that every battle had meant something. The group began to approach slowly, now with respect, almost reverence. There was no more mockery, only curiosity and a strange admiration. One of the boys touched one of the photos carefully, as if he were touching something sacred. "I didn't know that," he said, completing the sentence with an eloquent silence. It was at that moment that I realized the magnitude of the moment. The turnaround didn't come from words or threats, but from action and a concrete demonstration of experience. I showed them, without needing to explain in detail, that courage, sacrifice, and presence don't disappear with age. That those who faced war carry something that irreverent youth often underestimates. The leader, still breathing heavily, finally said, "Sorry, man. We had no idea." It wasn't just an apology, it was recognition, and for a moment I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Validation. Not because of my age, not because of my appearance, but because of who I truly was. As I looked at the silent barracks, I realized that the turnaround had been twofold. Not only had it changed the group's perception, but it had also reminded me that, despite the scars and the weight of the past, there was still relevance. There was still value in what we carry within us. And the barracks, silent witness to so many stories, seemed to smile in the shadows, approving of the unexpected outcome of that moment. The silence that followed my action was almost sacred. For the first time, the teenagers looked at me not only with surprise, but with a kind of silent reverence. There was no more mockery, no laughter, just genuine attention. It was as if, in a few seconds, the story I carried had become evident to them. Each scar, each wrinkle, and each war memory told a narrative that words could not convey. The group leader approached slowly, hesitantly, like someone approaching something they respect and fear at the same time. He took his cell phone from his hand, lowering it carefully, and said, We had no idea. I'm really sorry, man." Nothing more was needed. That apology was symbolic, but powerful. It was the justice that the world often denies us. It wasn't about rewarding courage with medals or applause, but about recognition. Recognition that even a veteran, aged by time and memories, can still act with precision, courage, and humanity. One of the boys, who had previously mocked my uniform, approached and with a cautious look said, "Dude, we've never seen anything like this before. You saved him and, well, it was incredible." I felt a strange warmth in my chest, a mixture of relief and satisfaction. It wasn't ego speaking, but the confirmation that my story wasn't erased, that the experience and sacrifices had meaning, that courage could manifest itself at any age and in any place. As they walked away, I could perceive small changes in their expressions, in their gestures. Looks of admiration now replaced the mockery. A silent respect emerged, and even if fleeting, it was real. And at that moment, I understood something fundamental. Recognition isn't just about us, veterans, but about how our actions can influence, teach, and inspire those who haven't yet faced the world in its harshness. As I walked through the barracks corridors, the echoes of old orders, past battles, and lost lives still accompanied me. But now they were not just painful memories. They were silent witnesses to a justice that didn't need external authorities. It was life, through those young people, recognizing what years of struggle and sacrifice had built within me. I looked at the old helmet on the floor, now more symbolic than ever. Each scratch and mark on it reminded me of moments I thought I had lost forever. And yet, at that moment, I realized that the true value of everything was not just in medals or official recognition, but in the way our history and our actions can impact and change the perception of others. One last look at the group revealed something curious. It wasn't just about them learning respect. It was about me realizing that, despite the weight of the past and painful memories, there was still relevance. There was still room for justice and recognition. The war hadn't ended when I left the battlefield. She continued to manifest herself even in unexpected situations, demanding courage, presence, and humanity. And as I left the barracks, I felt that, for the first time in a long time, the shadow of contempt had dissipated, replaced by something deeper. The certainty that, even invisible to the eyes of the world, our actions, our choices, and our courage continue to resonate, echoing through time and generations, bringing justice where before there was only indifference. As I walked alone through the empty corridors of the barracks, the dust raised by my footsteps seemed to carry with it the echoes of memories that I had long tried to contain. Each destroyed room, each fallen door, each forgotten bullet mark, brought back faces and voices that would never leave my mind. The absolute silence of the place was disturbing and comforting at the same time. It was a space where I could finally hear my own thoughts, without the rush of the modern world, without the judgment of people who don't understand what it's like to carry war inside. I closed my eyes for a moment and let the memories envelop me. I saw the face of Michaels, my sergeant and friend, moments before he was hit. I remembered the silent courage of soldiers who didn't complain, but who gave their all, even when hope seemed distant. I remembered sleepless nights, the heavy rain that seeped into the tents, the smell of gunpowder mixed with wet earth, the biting cold that froze the bones, and the orders shouted over muddy trenches. Every detail was a ghost that insisted on walking with me, insisting on reminding me of the price of courage. But they weren't just memories of pain. There were lessons. There were moments of true connection with those who stood by my side, moments that shaped who I am today. The abandoned barracks seemed to amplify these memories, as if each cracked wall reflected not only time, but the intensity of lives that had crossed paths there. I felt a strange mixture of nostalgia and sorrow, reminding me that despite all the destruction, there was beauty in the camaraderie, in the discipline, in the resilience that the war forced us to develop. As I walked through the overgrown courtyard, I touched the cold walls and felt the relief of the cracks. Each imperfection seemed to tell stories of intense training, of hazing and shouted orders, of struggles and small victories. I realized that this place was not just a barracks. It was a silent book narrating decades of military life, sacrifice and courage, and now I was part of that narrative as a character who survived to tell the story. Reflecting on the teenagers I met, I understood something profound. The humiliation, the contempt, and the upheaval I experienced at that moment were not only lessons for them, but also for me. I remembered that often society judges superficially, disregarding the experience, the history, and the sacrifices that shape a person. And yet, even in the face of indifference, courage, right action, and integrity remain, silently waiting to be recognized. I sat on a broken step in the courtyard, closing my eyes and taking a deep breath. I remembered nights of extreme cold, comrades who didn't return home, promises made under enemy fire, and the overwhelming sense of responsibility I have always carried. The deep emotional connection was not only in the past I relived, but in the understanding that each act, each decision, each memory shaped who I am today. I also realized that the war continues even after we leave the battlefields. It manifests itself in everyday challenges, in disrespect, in injustice, in moments when we are underestimated. But above all, it manifests itself in the way we choose to react, with courage, resilience, and humanity. Every gesture we make, every right decision, even when no one is watching, is a silent continuation of what we have learned during years of sacrifice. As the sun began to set, casting long, distorted shadows across the barracks, I felt a strange peace. It wasn't complete relief because the memories and scars remain, but it was the acceptance that my story, my experience, and my worth still have meaning. And that, even in the face of contempt or misunderstanding, we can still act in ways that inspire, teach, and transform the way others see us, just as those teenagers finally understood, albeit briefly, the depth of what it means to be someone who has faced war and continues to walk with honor, even amidst ghosts and echoes of the past. As the sun dipped behind the ruins of the barracks, a heavy silence enveloped the place. It felt as if every shadow was alive, watching my steps with almost conscious attention. My body was tired, but my mind remained alert. Years of training and combat experience wouldn't let me forget the danger, even if it was different from what I knew in the trenches. It was then that I heard the sound. A continuous crackling coming from the main corridor, followed by heavy, irregular footsteps. The wind carried a mixture of dust and metallic smell, and for a moment, I thought I was imagining things. But no. Something or someone was moving among the shadows, slowly approaching. My heart raced, not from fear, but from the realization that, at that moment, my courage would be tested like never before. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the dust and the twilight light. It wasn't human. It was a distorted reflection of memories, almost as if the barracks had decided to project onto reality the ghosts of all the battles I had lived through. Or perhaps it was just falling debris and shadows playing with my mind. But for me, a veteran accustomed to reacting under pressure, every sound and movement represented a real threat. Every instinct screamed, "Prepare yourself!" I advanced cautiously, each step calculated. My muscles responded with precision, reflexes from decades of combat flowing effortlessly. But the tension reached its peak when I heard the sound of wood cracking above me. The watchtower, which had already been unstable before, seemed to give way again, this time even more dangerously. If it fell, it could crush me or trap me there. A shiver ran down my spine. "Not now. Not again," I murmured, remembering the times life had brought me to the brink of death, and the fear that never completely disappears, even after years. And then, I heard footsteps behind me. The teenagers were still in the barracks, watching from a safe distance, but I knew I couldn't expect help. The moment demanded immediate action, instant decision, courage that could not fail. I took a deep breath, feeling every scar, every memory, and every workout course through my body. The weight of the past transformed into strength. With a swift movement, I grabbed the unstable beam and stabilized it with all the strength I had left. The sound of creaking and cracking wood echoed like gunshots, but I maintained control. The wind blew, bringing with it a mixture of dust, leaves, and old memories. For a moment, the world seemed to move in slow motion. Every detail mattered. The position of my feet, the balance of my body, the strength needed to prevent the tower from collapsing. The teenagers watched in absolute silence, finally realizing the gravity of what was happening. The leader, who had previously mocked me, seemed unable to speak, his gaze fixed on me, as if he finally understood that courage and experience cannot be replaced by youth or audacity. Finally, after seconds that seemed like an eternity, I managed to stabilize the beam, preventing the tower from falling on all of us. My body was exhausted, muscles aching, breathing heavy, but a feeling of triumph washed over me. It wasn't just physical survival that mattered. It was proof that experience, discipline, and courage remain intact, even in the face of chaos and imminent threat. The barracks, silent as always, seemed to approve of my action. Every shadow calmed, every echo ceased, and for a moment I felt that the peak tension had passed, leaving in its place a strange sense of peace and justice. The teenagers, finally understanding the magnitude of what they had witnessed, retreated in silence, respecting the man who had been on the brink of danger, and remained steadfast. And at that moment I realized that the climax was not just physical or immediate, it was emotional, mental, and spiritual. Facing danger again, feeling the weight of the past, and still acting with precision and courage, showed me that the true battle never ends. It continues within us, shaping our souls, testing our principles, and reminding us of the value of every action, even when no one else notices. As the sun dipped behind the ruins of the barracks, a heavy silence enveloped the place. It felt as if every shadow was alive, watching my steps with almost conscious attention. My body was tired, but my mind remained alert. Years of training and combat experience wouldn't let me forget the danger, even if it was different from what I knew in the trenches. It was then that I heard the sound. A continuous crackling coming from the main corridor, followed by heavy, irregular footsteps. The wind carried a mixture of dust and metallic smell. And for a moment, I thought I was imagining things. But no. Something or someone was moving among the shadows, slowly approaching. My heart raced, not from fear, but from the realization that, at that moment, my courage would be tested like never before. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the dust and the twilight light. It wasn't human. It was a distorted reflection of memories, almost as if the barracks had decided to project onto reality the ghosts of all the battles I had lived through. Or perhaps it was just falling debris and shadows playing with my mind. But for me, a veteran accustomed to reacting under pressure, every sound and movement represented a real threat. Every instinct screamed, "Prepare yourself." I advanced cautiously, each step calculated. My muscles responded with precision, reflexes from decades of combat flowing effortlessly. But the tension reached its peak when I heard the sound of wood cracking above me. The watchtower, which had already been unstable before, seemed to give way again, this time even more dangerously. If it fell, it could crush me or trap me there. A shiver ran down my spine. "Not now. Not again," I murmured, remembering the times life had brought me to the brink of death, and the fear that never completely disappears, even after years. And then, I heard footsteps behind me. The teenagers were still in the barracks, watching from a safe distance, but I knew I couldn't expect help. The moment demanded immediate action, instant decision, courage that could not fail. I took a deep breath, feeling every scar, every memory, and every workout course through my body. The weight of the past transformed into strength. With a swift movement, I grabbed the unstable beam and stabilized it with all the strength I had left. The sound of creaking and cracking wood echoed like gunshots, but I maintained control. The wind blew, bringing with it a mixture of dust, leaves, and old memories. For a moment, the world seemed to move in slow motion. Every detail mattered. The position of my feet, the balance of my body, the strength needed to prevent the tower from collapsing. The teenagers watched in absolute silence, finally realizing the gravity of what was happening. The leader, who had previously mocked me, seemed unable to speak, his gaze fixed on me, as if he finally understood that courage and experience cannot be replaced by youth or audacity. Finally, after seconds that seemed like an eternity, I managed to stabilize the beam, preventing the tower from falling on all of us. My body was exhausted, muscles aching, breathing heavy, but a feeling of triumph washed over me. It wasn't just physical survival that mattered. It was proof that experience, discipline, and courage remain intact, even in the face of chaos and imminent threat. The barracks, silent as always, seemed to approve of my action. Every shadow calmed, every echo ceased, and for a moment I felt that the peak tension had passed, leaving in its place a strange sense of peace and justice. The teenagers, finally understanding the magnitude of what they had witnessed, retreated in silence, respecting the man who had been on the brink of danger, and remained steadfast. And at that moment I realized that the climax was not just physical or immediate, it was emotional, mental, and spiritual. Facing danger again, feeling the weight of the past, and still acting with precision and courage, showed me that the true battle never ends. It continues within us, shaping our souls, testing our principles, and reminding us of the value of every action, even when no one else notices. Lessons from the past and present. As I left the barracks behind, I felt the weight of the past transform into something lighter, though still present. The memories of battles, of shouted orders, of lost comrades, of physical and emotional scars, all remained within me, but now also carried a rare clarity. The true battle is not only against visible enemies, but against the indifference, ignorance, and contempt of those who do not understand the value of experience. What I experienced in that abandoned barracks was not just a reunion with memories of the past, but proof that courage and dignity do not disappear with time. I learned that youth, however daring and irreverent it may be, often needs concrete demonstrations to understand the meaning of sacrifice, honor, and resilience, and that we, veterans, carry within us not only memories, but lessons that the world needs, even if it rarely recognizes them. Reflecting on the episode with the teenagers, I realized something profound. Justice and recognition don't necessarily depend on authority or medals. Sometimes they come from silent acts, from correct decisions made under pressure, from courage shown at the right time. The respect we earn in this way is lasting because it's based on truth, not on appearances or empty words. The barracks, in its ruin and silence, became a mirror of my own life, full of scars, shadows, and painful memories, but also of moments of courage, learning, and meaning. Each destroyed room, each fallen door, each bullet mark was a reminder that life is fragile, unpredictable, and full of tests. But also that each challenge faced with honor contributes to building character, courage, and a story that deserves to be remembered. The most important lesson, I realized, is that the war doesn't end on the battlefield. It continues in our minds, in our choices, and in how we react to injustice, disrespect, and the contempt of the world around us. Surviving a war doesn't just mean staying physically alive, but maintaining integrity, compassion, and courage, even when no one is watching. I also thought about the fragility of collective memory. How many veterans have been forgotten? How many stories of sacrifice and courage remain invisible, buried under the weight of indifference? And even when we are remembered, recognition often comes late or superficially. But real value doesn't depend on applause. It lies in action, in the honesty of facing challenges, in the courage to remain true to oneself in the face of contempt, and in the ability to inspire others, even without realizing it. As I walked through the rusty gate for the last time, I felt a strange serenity. The past would continue to haunt me, but in a way that now carried meaning. Every step, every memory, every scar had value, not only for me, but for those who, for a few seconds, were able to witness what it means to face fear, pain, and indifference with courage and dignity. And so I understood that the true moral of my story is this: war, contempt, and the injustices of life do not disappear on their own. It is up to us to face them, with integrity and courage, transforming pain into action, silence into learning, and memories into legacy. The world often underestimates those who carry scars, but each of us has within us the capacity to surprise, teach, and inspire, even when no one believes we are still capable. The barracks are behind us, but their echoes will remain with me forever. They remind me that every battle, every challenge, every moment of tension is not just about survival. It is about honor, learning, and the ability to transform even the darkest moments into lessons that illuminate the path for ourselves and for those who cross our path.